Hello there. This is Caitlin.
And this is Ira, and we're just stopping by the feed in a casual style to tell you about our new Patreon episode.
How's everybody doing out there? Good, good. Same. Yeah. So the news is true. We have a new Patreon bonus episode.
Yeah, and this time I felt like this was a good. I mean, they're all good. Everyone is good, but this one was a nice one.
They're all worth paying a certain amount of money for sure.
So we talk about the 3-minute animated short Puparia, which directed by Shingo Tamagawa. You might have just, if you're on the internet a lot, maybe you came across it. It was new to Caitlin and pretty new to me. I just found it right before we talked about it, and it was kind of like a modern masterpiece.
Yeah, yes, it's awesome. You can find it on youtube.com very easily.
I'll put the link in the show notes here.
Perfect. So you can find it at that link.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And it was made by one man. And then you can also find a really compelling documentary, Shingo Tamagawa, 3 minutes, 3 years, making Puparia. It's 20 minutes to the original short's 3. I think it's well worth watching. Really, really fascinating. Watch the short first. Go check out this documentary. Swing by the Patreon and listen to us unpack all of this.
Yes, and if you don't want to watch the documentary, that's fine, because we read the transcript of it out loud.
Oh, that's true. So in a way, you could follow along.
That sounds stupid, but actually opened up a bunch of interesting conversations about making stuff.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite episodes we've done, you and I.
Yeah.
And I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Well, our friends out there can relive about 5 minutes of it right now, and then you have to pay for the rest of it. So enjoy. It's something new. We haven't really talked about a lot of newer things because I think full-length features are kind of tough to talk about when they just come out. We found...
Yeah, there's no feelings developed yet. Unless you're like, whoa, Spider-Verse, the best film ever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But this is something we can kind of resonate with because it's got this documentary that goes with it. And we're going to kind of like, we'll get there in a couple minutes. But I don't know. You want to, like, what were your feelings when you first watched it? Just like initial response to it.
This is going to sound ridiculous, I get. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I was blown away by this. I was just like, wow, this is everything to me. And I loved it. So, yeah. Follow-up questions?
Well, what do you mean? Okay. All right, you want a real follow-up question? Fine.
No, I want a fake one.
What do you mean when, like, what does it represent to you when you see something like this? Like something that you really want to get behind? Because I have an answer.
Is any answer permissible? Or,
yeah.
Okay. I don't know. When I see this, I'm like, this is the stuff that I want to be doing. Not necessarily in specifics, although, like, yeah, I would love to also steal this talent and just incorporate it into my mass. It's just so beautiful and weird and interesting, and we'll talk about this a lot, I'm sure, but it's all like traditional, like traditionally made, which I'm very, very into. Mm-hmm. I feel a deep spiritual resonance through the, while also being like hyper aware of my failure to ever do anything similar, I think. Mm-hmm. But that's fine. And I just think it's amazing. I don't even know if that was a full thought.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, I think I feel exactly the same way. There's also an element of, there's something very, very alien about it. Like I could never come up with these ideas that are even close to this, like the kind of sequence of the train of thought that completed this, because as he describes it, it's sort of like, I sort of just started and I went where I went, and that's kind of where I went.
I am excited to talk about that because it makes a lot of sense to me. And I think it's like an animation specific thing.
Yeah. I think I love the opportunity to just be a little confused. I think because I feel safe with my work, I'm not afraid to be like totally thrown off by something somebody else did. And I've watched this a lot of times now, and I've come around. At first, I was actually scared to bring it up because I feel I am far from an anime and manga expert in any way. Like we just talked about cat soup last week. And while I really felt like I had a lot I wanted to say about it, I was very hesitant to talk about it because I feel like I'm just not well versed in the language of that stuff. But I've come around with this one where I'm ready to do it.
I'm sorry to hear that also.
No, it was a good,
I love the I want to make sure that you feel
no, like I said, I'm not actually, no, I'm not afraid.
Steeped in anime culture.
I want to be afraid.
Perfect,
I'm afraid
same.
of the the cocoon in this. We'll get there too.
A24 Puparia.
So anyway, that's kind of the quick overview. If you're not convinced to watch it or you haven't watched it yet, I mean, well, I don't care. Just keep listening. We're going to have a great time and we're going to say a lot of things. Okay, so here, Caitlin, here's how we're going to do this. And I wrote you a text message. It's like, okay, here's like the format for today's show, and you were on board. So here we go.
But I was lying.
Oh.
No, I was fine.
I was trying to read that in your tone. So watch the short, but you don't necessarily have to watch the documentary that accompanies it. It's about maybe 15, 20 minutes long.
Yeah, about 20 minutes.
It's just sort of footage of Shingo Tamagawa working in what seems like probably his studio space, kind of riding his bike, doing his different things around. I guess he's outside. He's in Japan? Is he in Tokyo?
I just assumed yes, and I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, we know he's around Sunshine Studios, wherever that is, because that's the space he was involved in. And what I've done is I've copy and pasted the transcript from this documentary because Caitlin and I both agree he is very well spoken. He's humble. He says like very clear things that like resonate with the heart of like a creative person.
I found this documentary to be like a beautiful art piece.
Yeah.
And as somebody who like, we all know, I don't really care for documentary, but this, I was like, this is the kind of stuff that I'm actually interested in. It reminds me honestly of the Cat Soup documentary that I watched in a way. Just because it's like, it's about somebody, but it was more about like, it's just somebody saying stuff and talking and not somebody else like editorializing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like for this, it was just, it's him basically monologuing in what seems like a very natural way with no weird, or like unnatural feeling breaks. So it just like you were saying this before we started recording, it sounds like he just sat down and was like, here it all is, like with no pauses.
Here's how I got here.
Yeah. It's just like a flawless thesis on his work. And it's just like captivating.
Yeah, it reminded me of when we did our Maurice Sendak episode, and he's in his studio in 1967 or whatever, and just like instantly, clearly speaks his just from his heart of like where he got with the project that like led him to a Caldecott. You know, it's like this has that feeling. So I'm like, ooh, maybe we love documentaries.
No, it's like this is how you know that you've embodied like a true artistry is when you can talk about your work like this.
Yeah. Yeah,
you can sit in your studio next to your pegboard and be like, here's everything you need to know about me.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of move through this documentary. We both have a Google Doc open with all the text. So I'm going to read some phrases if you see anything you want to read, but we can just use these as like jumping off points to talk about why we think that's an important idea to bring up when talking about creativity. So we have to start with the first sentence, which is really what this show is all about. He says, I used to like drawing since I was a child. I feel like this is really just a show about loving to draw. Because like whatever a cartoon ends up being in its a final product, there's a part where it's just about loving to draw.
Yeah.
Do you love to draw?
Yes. Since I was a child, in fact.
Oh, okay.
I find this very relatable quality.
If you could pick one thing, is drawing the thing?
Yes, 100%. Like, no question. If I could just do it all the time for only that, I would. And I think that's always been true.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like, animators... I can't speak necessarily the mindset of people who exclusively work in 3D, but at least it's like animators want to do it because they love drawing so much. Not necessarily... I don't know. I guess like the animation part just comes naturally out of that. Like I feel like I have a really good grasp generally of how movement should work in the way that I animate stuff. But I feel, and it's not really because it comes from study, but it feels to me like it's very intuitive. So I think it's just because you're thinking about drawing and posing all the time that stuff almost feels secondary, even though it's like the whole point of animation.
Right. I've noticed, just to kind of not have the exact same answer, I'll say that drawing is, I would have to pick it. But I found over the last like 7 or 8 years, writing dialogue specifically for comics has become like a pursuit that I'm very interested in because I feel like I was never good at being clear, which people listening to the show probably understand that because I usually say my sentence is part of it. Then I jump to another section and come back to finish the sentence. I write the same way and it takes me like 8 drafts to write a clear thought. So that's become like a thing that is important to cartooning and comics and important to making something like this is like the writing aspect, but it's not as important in the drawing. And so that's kind of like, I have some things I want to say about vibe and how we categorize that and how something like this is a vibe, but it has potential to like be more.
Yeah.
And what that difference is. And we'll get there maybe later on. So drawing as a child, check that off the list.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, so sentence 1 from this 20-minute documentary.
We both agree.